What real spirituality actually is has become surprisingly difficult to define in modern culture, because the word spirituality is now used for almost everything. It is connected to mindfulness, healing, manifestation, positivity, self-care, and personal growth. Yet the more spirituality becomes part of mainstream culture, the more its deeper meaning often disappears. Real spirituality was never mainly about comfort or emotional reassurance. In its deeper sense, spirituality begins when people start questioning how they experience themselves, reality, identity, and consciousness itself. Modern spirituality is often shaped by self-optimization, because many people approach spiritual practices as tools to reduce stress, improve focus, regulate emotions, or feel better about themselves. While these things can certainly be valuable, they are not the essence of spirituality, because spirituality is not primarily about improving the self, but about understanding the self, and those are fundamentally different processes. The moment spirituality becomes identity, something subtle begins to happen because the ego adapts very quickly. People begin to identify as spiritual, awakened, conscious, or highly aware, but the underlying structures of identity often remain untouched. This is one reason spirituality can easily become superficial, since spiritual language, symbols, and practices can exist without real inner transformation. Information alone does not create awareness, and spiritual knowledge is not the same as consciousness. Real spirituality changes perception itself because it changes the relationship people have to thought, emotion, fear, attachment, and identity. It changes the way reality is experienced internally. This process is rarely entirely comfortable because awareness does not only reveal peace and clarity, but also contradiction, insecurity, unconscious patterns, and illusions people would often rather avoid. Many forms of modern spirituality focus almost entirely on positive emotional states such as peace, harmony, healing, manifestation, or high vibration. Yet reality itself is more complex than emotional comfort. A spirituality that only works under pleasant conditions remains fragile because life naturally includes uncertainty, difficulty, conflict, and change. Real spirituality does not deny these realities or try to escape them. Instead, it changes how people relate to them internally. One of the deepest misunderstandings about spirituality is the assumption that spirituality means withdrawing from society or escaping modern life. In reality, awareness changes how people participate in life rather than whether they participate at all, because conscious people still work, still struggle, still face uncertainty, and still carry responsibility. What changes is their inner center of gravity, because they slowly become less dependent on external validation, external identity, and constant emotional reassurance. This creates a very different relationship to modern society, because people become less reactive, less compulsive, and less driven by comparison, fear, and constant stimulation. The external world does not suddenly become easier, but internal dependence gradually weakens, and this changes perception in profound ways. Real spirituality also requires a difficult form of honesty, especially self-honesty, because it asks people to observe themselves without constantly protecting identity or creating comforting explanations. Real transformation is usually much quieter than modern spiritual culture suggests, because genuine inner change often happens gradually and almost invisibly from the outside. Internally, however, perception becomes more spacious, more stable, and less dependent on constant stimulation or emotional intensity. One of the clearest signs of real spirituality is simplicity. Not simplification, but simplicity in the sense of a clearer relationship to reality, a quieter relationship to the self, and a reduced need to constantly perform identity. This does not mean becoming passive, detached, emotionally numb, or disconnected from the world, because real spirituality is not withdrawal and not superiority. It is a deeper form of presence that allows people to respond more consciously instead of reacting automatically. A person who becomes more aware does not necessarily become more impressive, but they often become more grounded, more real, and more capable of conscious participation in life. Modern society constantly pulls attention outward through distraction, comparison, stimulation, and endless identity construction, while spirituality in its deeper sense moves in the opposite direction, not away from reality, but toward direct experience, greater awareness, clearer perception, and conscious participation in life itself. Perhaps this is why real spirituality often feels quieter than expected, because it becomes less dramatic, less performative, and less dependent on appearance, ideology, emotional intensity, or external confirmation. Real spirituality is not about escaping the world, but about relating to it differently, with more awareness, more responsibility, and less illusion. If this perspective resonates with you, subscribe to Spirit Online. We explore consciousness beyond trends with depth, clarity, and responsibility.